needless to say, we never caught a fish. We wouldn't have known what the hell to do with it if we did catch it. But anyway, you know, we traveled together. We went to Mexico together. We went to the West together. We did drive the same cab. We drove different cabs. But probably if we could have, I would have been a passenger in his cab and he in mine. We had a real competition when we were in law school and during the summer, driving a cab as to who would make more money. Not that we're competitive, mind you. The only time we're really competitive is on a squash court. For those of you who really think Sandy's the nicest guy in the world, and he is, except on an athletic field. Don't run into his elbows on a basketball court. His colleagues in the house will tell you still what it's like to play against Sandy in a basketball game. But Sandy and I did everything we could together. In his last year in law school, my first year, we roomed together. As kids, we were raised together. Our parents actually, we had a big house on Boston Boulevard. Some of you know Detroit well enough to know that Boston Edison area. We had a big house, big garage, big enough to put up. We actually had almost a basketball court in our backyard. But we had a room for each of us. And I know our grandkids, Barb's and my grandkids are listening to this because now I think each one of them have their own room. Now that Laura and her family have moved to Pittsburgh, I think the kids each have their own room. Well, I haven't even seen their... Erica, forgive me. That's what happens when you're 80. Thank you, Sammy. Thank you, Sammy, for reminding me. Erica and Rick have moved to Pittsburgh with their family. I think they have a big enough house. Now that the kids each have their own room. But our parents tore down the wall between us so that we would have a room together. And that's the way it's been all of our lives. And as I think I mentioned this morning in my remarks, I'm going to miss a lot of things about Washington. We're going home, we know that. It may take us a few months to get there. But Barb and I are moving back to Michigan, probably Detroit if we can find a big enough place. But a big enough place near where we want to live, which is in Lafayette Park. But I forgot what my train of thought was, and this card isn't going to help me, so I'll leave it go at that. I know what I was trying to remember, and that is what I said in my remarks. And that has to do with sitting together with Sandy for 32 years at the State of the Union, trying not to boo when Ronald Reagan or George Bush were there, on our best behavior, doing our best to cheer on Clinton and Obama, but always sitting together. He always saved a seat for me. We've had a fabulous run at being on the Armed Services Committee first, to learn something about the military when I first got here. I didn't serve in the military, and I wanted to know more about it, and it's been a fabulous lesson about men and women who put on the uniform and who work in the military. They are an amazing group, not just because of their bravery, but because of their leadership skills. The Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations has done a heroic job. There's no committee like it in the Senate that has the subpoena power that it has, the ability to look at anything that we want to look at, the power to swear in witnesses, which puts them usually on their best behavior, and being a bipartisan committee. You can imagine the determination to be bipartisan in a committee where the leaders are so different in terms of what our focus is. Tom Coburn, my ranking member for a number of years. John McCain, my ranking member now. And I just asked John McCain yesterday, would he co-sponsor a bill that came out of the hearing that we recently had on commodities, a hearing which showed that very, very powerful banks at the same time, they were tying up commodities in this country, using the Goldman example of the aluminum warehouses in Detroit. At the same time, they were literally impacting the price of aluminum in the entire country with inside information that only they knew, to be technically correct, because I know my PSI staff is looking at me. Non-public information that nobody else had. Using that at the same time that they were engaged in financial transactions gives them an opportunity that nobody should have. Helping to determine the price of something at the same time. Using that information that nobody else has to buy and sell financial deals. So John McCain said, sure, sign me up. Just like that. That's John McCain, by the way. He responds very quickly. Sometimes the next day he'll say, holy cow, did I really say that? I usually try to file the bill before he has a chance to. But I've been blessed, family-wise, staff-wise, friends-wise. Maybe we ought to end with a funny anecdote, maybe a campaign anecdote. And we have a bunch of favorites, and I'm doing a little oral history now, and Tara has had to sit in on some of the history. Poor Tara, by the way, drove me to some meeting with the press the other day, and how many years you've been? 26 years with me now, and I still give her directions as to how to make right turns and left turns. But at any rate, we have a lot of campaign anecdotes, and I'm not sure which one to end with. Some of you were, perhaps, I know some of you were in these campaigns, and maybe on the chance that some of you haven't heard the anecdote about me and running against the astronauts, and Sandy talked about authenticity. I'll end with this anecdote so we can leave with a laugh, hopefully. So please laugh. Jack Lausma, who is a terrific guy, was in the military. He was an astronaut. He was the guy I ran against in the second campaign. Ronald Reagan was in the White House. It was 1984. Reagan, very popular. I voted against his tax cut. And it was one of the few that did, and my staff was telling me, of course, that there's no way I'd survive it. There was, I think, 8 or 10 of us who voted no, and we had to figure out how do we handle it in the campaign. But that wasn't the highlight of the campaign, trying to figure out how to handle a no vote against Ronald Reagan, who was in the Oval Office, providing a video to my opponent for TV commercials, looking as Ronald Reagan only could look, really sincere and really knowledgeable and straight, and friendly, and looking at everybody and saying, and he was up for re-election, don't vote for me, folks, for president, and then vote against me in the U.S. Senate. I need, what's his name, Jack Lausma. Anyway, Jack Lausma started his campaign handing out his political literature. In his political literature, I don't have a long piece of paper here. I need paper. Here's paper, more paper. Okay. Anyway, oh, here, this one was long enough. So, Lausma had this brochure that he handed out. It started off with his physical characteristics. And it was 6'2". Now I know Barb's looking at me because she's going to edit this if I'm wrong. It's close enough. 6'2", 190 pounds, blonde hair and blue eyes. Now my staff thinking, oop, that's a signal there. You know, I'm Jewish, and he's subtly telling people something with the blonde hair, blue eyes, and I knew better. Number one, the incredible low level of any anti-Semitism, but also because Jack Lausma was out of the military and was doing nothing purposeful. Believe me, he was just, trust me, he was not doing anything that he thought would be a personal attack or anything anti-Semitic. I know it for sure. I have no doubt about it. But this opened up the door to a real opportunity. So the way I'd start speeches was I would wave around Lausma's campaign brochure, and I'd say, well, now my opponent started off with his physical characteristics, 6'2", it'd come out the same way, 6'2", 190 pounds, blonde hair, blue eyes. And I said, well, we've done a little public opinion polling on this, folks. And we've decided to throw out all my political literature and start over. We're going to print something up tomorrow, starting off with my physical characteristics. 5'9½", 195 pounds, plump, balding, and disheveled. That's the way the audience is reacting. But the bottom line was, and folks, our public opinion pollsters tell us this is a winning strategy because there's more of us than there is of them. There are more of us than there is of them. Thank you all.